It's going.
Are you gone? You're on?
We can always trim it so whenever you're ready to start. Oops.
I didn't say you. Hi, I'd like to know the history of
All right, we're going to go ahead and roll here. Okay, so part 3. These are the first 3 verses of the Exodus 20 Ten Commandments written in Paleo. Aleph Nun Kaf Yod, Yod He Vav He, Aleph Lamed He Yod Kaf, Anoki Yahweh El Heka, I am Yahweh your Elohim. So the other way to read that, as I said earlier, is that this is the word for I or ego or self. Nun Kaf Yod has to do with depreciation. Aleph Nun Kaf as a word literally means onyx or claw or plummet, plumb line, to straighten, perpendicular, vertical, or to cover with lead. Why should it mean to cover something with lead? Well, if you have a lead weight and you have it on a string, then you drop it, so lead is associated with a plumb line, but that word is used to cover something with lead. So that doesn't mean if you put some lead on a chair that that's the same as that word, but you can use that word to mean something's covered with lead just because you got lead on the chair. So Hebrew works in this kind of weird way that we're not used to thinking in with Greco-Roman, English-American mindset. Yud Vav He, he will cause to exist or annihilate from existing. El Heka, you or yours, motion towards powerful, I will unto her. The word Lamed He literally means to her, or for her, or unto her. And then my, at the end, for you. I will unto her my stuff for her, for you. There's another way to read that. So you can read each letter, or you can take every 2 letters, or you can take every 3 letters. Quick interrupt. This particular chart, which is on the Dropbox you can get. What I did here, take the natural alphabetic sequence and try to do a study. What if you took Aleph Bet as a word? That's what this means, this blue bracket. Then Bet Gimel, that's what it means. And an associated word, Bet Gimel Vav, would mean inside or in the midst of, but Bet Gimel itself means food, allotment, or delicacy. How about Gimel Dalet? Dalet Hey, Hey Vav, Vav Zion. So I took every 2-letter word pairs in the natural sequence, organic Devarim, the natural sequence of the letters in the alphabet, and plotted them in 2 letters this way. But then I took every 3. Aleph Bet Gimel Dalet, Gimel Dalet Hey, Dalet Hey Vav, Hey Vav Zion, Zion Het Tet, Het Tet. So it took every 2-letter and every 3-letter in the natural sequence going from Aleph to Tav, and then in the reverse order, just to see, as kind of an experiment, can you see that there's a message in the flow of the natural words spelled by the natural sequence? There seems to be, to me, but that's what this is. So the same idea where you're taking every 2-letter, this isn't in the natural sequence. Aleph Lamed means motion toward. Aleph Lamed Hey means these. Aleph Lamed Hey Yod means my power. Aleph Lamed Hey Yod Kaf means my powerful to you. And it's translated your Elohim. The word Elohim is translated as God or gods or powers. Okay, Asher. The word Asher, Aleph Shin Resh, is similar to Yod Shin Resh. Yod Shin Resh is the first 3 letters of the word Israel, and it means to make something straight. The word Yashar, as in the book of Jasher, means the straight path. Asher means, it's translated simply as who, or that, or which, or that which, or it means to strengthen, authenticate, confirm, or validate, or to walk the straight path. It's also the name of the tribe Asher, and it also means to be happy or blessed. So in Psalm 119, the first two verses start with Ashri, which would be to say, blessed is he, or happy is the one. But it also could be read as, does anybody want to get my blessing? So now that's a whole different way to read Ashri. Well, this is the word Asher without the yod, because Ashri would be, this is my blessing. So then that means you can read this word Asher, and is it simply the word that? Whoever would do something such. But you'd say the word whoever would be Asher. But the word who would be me, as in me, kamoka, who is like you. So there's the same word who has a different connotation. The word me, mem yod, literally is this mem, which is this womb or this hidden place that would be to bring something, and then yod is meaning my own. So the word me means, as the word who, you could say, well, who wants my hidden stuff? Or who is like you? It means some random individual. But Ashri is kind of like whoever would like to get blessed should walk straight and authenticate this path, validating what's true by their behavior, actions. Why do I say that? Because the word Aleph means I will, and Shin Resh is the word Sar, as in Sar Shalom, Prince of Peace. If you look at the word Sar, Shin Resh, in the dictionary, you'll see that it means prince, as in Prince of Peace, Sar Shalom, patron, poet, an artist, a singer. What is a poet, a singer, a prince, a patron? What do these all have together in common? What's the common denominator between all these things? A government official is someone who absorbs taxes, skims off the top, and turns it into helping the benefit of everyone. A poet takes difficult or interesting philosophical conundrums and turns them into little ditties and makes a song out of them. Oh, especially the folk singers in the 60s, or the little Alphabetic song. Try to take these heavy matters of the eternal destiny of the universe and turn them into the tune to the Itsy Bitsy Spider. That's what a sar would do. So a poet, a singer, a patron, a prince, that's what they do. What has that got to do with Asher? The word Aleph Shin is fire, and the Resh is a head. Fire in the head. What does that mean? Well, it's kind of like, what's a poet? Gosh, I've got the muse. I've got this burning. I've got to express this thing. I've got to paint a picture. I've got to make a song about the injustice of the civil rights issues or some other matter. That fire in the head that you then have to express and get it out there to affect people's consciousness so that they can get the blessing by straightening and authenticating what's the path. That's all that's in the word Asher. Hey Vav Zadi Aleph Tav Yod Kaf Ha Otsetika Otsetika. Zadi is a sprout, a blossom, like a resurrection. There's the word Aleph Tav, the beginning and the end. Yod, near the end of the word, means my. Kaf is for you. Hey is to reveal. Vav, and make the connection. To reveal this connection about sprouting, Zadi Aleph means go out, get out of here. It's also the word for excrement. It's like, be fouled and be abominate and may be regarded as filthy. Yahweh said, I am Yahweh Elohim, who exported and made you get blasted out of Egypt as you were some, in their eyes, filthy excrement. Get out of here from the land of Mitzrayim, Egypt, from the house of Obedim, slavery. This is a very specific covenant, Yahweh to Israel, the very people that were in this place, Mitzrayim. The word zar, Zadi Resh, is like being between a rock and a hard place. It's narrow straits, where we get the word Caesar, Kaiser, and Tzar or Tsar, like the Tsar of Russia. It's the same word. The overlord that's oppressing you is the Tsar, is the Caesar. Mem is the place of, or the one who, and then Yod Mem is the plural. Excuse me? Oh, sorry. Anyway, Resh Yod Mem would be Reem, like a big ox, Reem or Rom, or like the Romulans or the Romans, they use a Star Trek term. It's the big tough guys, the big scary guys. So this would be the place or the name of the armies of Caesar, which is the word Mitzrayim, which is the word for distress and straits, which is the word for Egypt. So what I'm saying is that it's simply translated Egypt, but I'm trying to show you these other things behind the place of Egypt. And this word zadi, which is to sprout or resurrect, is the same word there, the letter zadi. And you can say, well, the letter zadi also speaks of a hunter. It also is like a bird that puts out its wing to fly, having to do with export. It's a blossom. And so there's all these different things that you'll find in the dictionary, and you'll find in all the different translations, and you'll start seeing why some translations vary from others. Not that they're doing the wrong thing, but I maintain, as I said in the last hour here, that I believe that it's not the devil who messed up these words. It's not the Catholic Church. It's not the rabbinical Jews. It's not the ones who took Greek and Latin and tried to turn them into a model of their other cultures, what we would call pagan deities. But it was Yahweh himself who allowed, caused, perpetuated the obfuscation, the distortion, the convoluted words that we've been handed down because our ancestors didn't want the responsibility of understanding. Ignorance is bliss. They rejected the covenant, and there's a verse that says, later on in the future, these days, someone will grab a hold of the tzitzit of one Jew and say, let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. Oh, well, that kind of gives preeminence to the Jews. It's like grabbing a hold of like these threads and say, oh, we have heard that God is with you. Wait a minute, what about the Christians? Isn't God with them? Doesn't he answer their prayers? And besides that, the Jews, are they not walking the straight path of Yashar? Or are they spun off in their rabbinical nonsense also? What do you mean God is with you? What do you mean he's with the Jews? There's a different way to translate that verse. What these ones say that grab a hold of the tzitzit of one Jew, and some people say, oh, the one Jew, that's Yeshua, that's the Messiah. Or maybe it's any Jew that happens to be wearing a tzitzit, because they're the only ones until now who've ever given a regard to the instructions written in the Tanakh. But now, the lost tribes scattered across the face of the earth are awakening and coming back, Kufzadi, coming back and regarding the instructions. So anyone of the rest of Israel could see the tzitzit worn by a man of Yehuda, a Jew, and say, hey, let's go with you, because Shemanu Elohim Amkam. It's translated, we hear that God is with you, or we have heard that God is with you. But if you look at the word Shemanu, it's we hear. We Shema Elohim. We Shema our mighty one. Am-kam, ayin mem, kaf mem, am means with, and kaf mem means you, but it's like with meaning in league with you, as you do, together with you. Let us go with you because we Shema Elohim, just like he said, just like you do, just like we do, together we Shema Elohim. You see the difference? It's not we have heard that God is with you. We Shema, we hear, we obey, we regard Elohim just like you do. And I can tell you do because you're wearing one of those tzitzit. And the reason to wear the tzitzit, there's two commandments, Deuteronomy and Numbers, where he said, listen, I know you guys are going to forget. I know you're going to get distracted. I know that everything else is more important. So tell you what, tie for yourselves these little threads. The word tzitzit is like you get the word tzitzit fly. It's a little thing that flies around. Literally, that's what the word means. And he says, put in it a blue thread. You can make any color. It doesn't have to be white. It could be, I got some that are black and blue. He says, have a blue thread. And you will see the color blue, and I will decree that when you see the blue thread, you will remember that I made the rules. I designed this place. I know how it works. I'm telling you how it works. You'll see the blue thread. You'll remember I gave you these words, and you will do them, and then you'll get the blessing. You don't put the blue thread. You have a white one or a different color one. You forget that I gave you any rules. It becomes a habit and a tradition. It becomes a regal of your own regalia. And you forget what I told you because you follow the Talmud instead of the Torah, or you follow the Vatican Council, or you follow the Westminster Confession of Faith, and it's blah, 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 whatever. It just becomes another tradition of doctrine. And you don't keep my words. You get the curse instead of the blessing. So wear tzitzit, put a blue thread in it, you look at it, you remember my words, and you get the blessing. What blessing? They're in the Ten Commandments. We'll go through them.
Can I just go back? Earlier you just gave a definition of the Ten Commandments and you said a list of negotiated, and I forgot what the rest of it was. A list of
terms and conditions of contractual arrangement, contractual terms of relationship one to another, obligations, responsibilities, and you might say perks and benefits. In other words, It's an obligation of obedience. It's also a responsibility, like, oh, now you're burdened with this thing to carry. But it's also, oh, if you do this, you also get the benefits and all the perks that go along with it. So now we're going to go through it. So here's the thing. That's the first. Obed. The word obed is where we get the word obedience. It's the word obey. It's also the word for slave or servant. But it's also the word for worship. If you're a worshiper of Yahweh, you are an Obed. The word Obadiah, the name of the minor prophet, their book in the Old Testament, is that word. So someone says, I remember hearing a song on the radio one time. It was a Christian radio station, and they're singing the song saying, this song is our worship. And you go, I was thinking, you know, I don't recall ever reading a verse where he said to sing a song to worship him. I do read in the word itself that to be his slave and his servant and do what he said is worship, because it's the same word. So the meaning of the word is embedded in the meaning of the word. The word worship is also slave and servant. And then Yeshua said something about, look, I'm not calling you my slave and servant, I'm calling you my friend. Because you don't necessarily tell you the rhyme and reason for giving a servant a commanded task. But you might discuss it with your friends. I'm discussing it with you. But that doesn't mean we're not as worshipers, and that doesn't mean we can sit there and say, well, I'm going to be your worshiper, but I'm not going to do what you say. I don't have to do what you said. My fearless leader said it was nailed to the cross, so I'm not going to do what you said, but I'm going to now have to invent what does worship look like. I'm going to sing a song and tell you how much I love you, and that's going to be your worship. And you better like it, because that's all you're getting. We take it upon ourselves to tell him what worship looks like. He's already told us, because remember, this is his language. He invented these letters, proven because they map to the 7 days, the 7 festivals, and the Mishkan pattern, which is a model of his son wrapped up in the letters of this covenant. Therefore, it means he, Yahweh, the Almighty Creator of heaven and earth, invented and designed and orchestrated and initiated the functional aspects of real living life embedded in every letter. So if he says the word translated worship is Obed, and it's where we get the word obedience and obey, like a slave and a servant, it means that obedient servitude to his words is worship by his definition. It's not church doctrine, it's not legalism, it's his language. Okay, I'm just taking that one word to belabor the point, to say, I'm not preaching legalism, I'm not preaching grace versus law, I'm just trying to look at it and saying, what do these words mean? Now, the word Obed is spelled Ayin Bet Dalet. The word Bet Dalet is the same word used for Adam when it said it wasn't good that Adam was alone. Well, in English the word is good, in Hebrew it would be tov, and the word for being alone is the word bad. So it wasn't good for Adam to be bad. What does that mean? I'm blending Hebrew and English, so it gets confusing. The word bad, which is Bet Dalet, literally means if you go to a tree and cut a branch off it, and now you use the tree to make a closet pole or a broom handle or an axe handle or whatever it is, you've separated that branch from the rest of the tree, and now you're going to do something else with it. It's all alone by itself. Bet Dalet means to cut something off and to make it alone, unique, separated. Adam was separated from all the other animals of creation. He was alone, unique, distinctly other. That's the word Bet Dalet. And the letter Ayin literally is an eyeball. So if you have, like that song, I only have eyes for you, that's the word Obed. I only have eyes for you. Eyeball, separated, Yod, my eye, Obedim, well that's the plural. Yod, Mem, and Vav, Tav are two different plurals. But the point is, the word Obed, which is my worship, is, I only have eyes for you. I'm your servant. What do you want me to do? That's the word Obed. So you can express it in a song, not that that's wrong, but what he said is, do what I say. I believe, though, if I'm not mistaken here, the word Ayin Bet is the word for, yes, it's a thick cloud, or a thick beam, or anything thick, like a thick rope. The word Obed literally makes make, did, action, work, serve, worship, servant, slave, and obediently. Bet Dalet, which is to say something cut off and separated, is also the word that means, Bet Dalet Aleph Yod, which is a different suffix ending, would be lying fabricated, invented fiction. Which is to say, everything else is true, but now I'm going to take something and change it and say, well, this is my own invention. Well, it's not true anymore, so now this is a fabrication. So bet dalet also is the root of the bet dalet aleph yod. Throwing an aleph in there, it changed a little bit, but what I'm trying to do, there's this whole study, which I'll make available that you can have, and anybody on the listening to this on YouTube, the camera can also have a copy of this if you want. But what I've done, just to show you, every word is broken down by the 2-letter, 3-letter, and 1-letter substance of it. And then putting them all back together and taking all the meanings. For example, if ayin bet means thick, cloud, beam, or rope, ayin bet dalet, made, action, work, serve, worship, bet dalet, separate only, no other, cut off from, bet dalet yod means for the sake of, dalet yod mem is where you get the word dummy, or dam, which would be blood. Damoi, dalet mem vav yod means likeness, resemblance, or a comparison, which is like a dummy, but a dummy is also silent, so to be dumb, so you can't speak, is the Hebrew word, which means to be silent. That's showing you where English and Greek and Latin comes out of Hebrew. It also, dalet mem hey, means equal in value, like crash test dummy. This is what we're going to make the dummy like a human to see what's going to happen if you get in a crash. It means as intended, he thought, believed, or imagined. Similar word, ayin bet dalet aleph, means occurrence or fact. So what I've done then is take all these different things. Ayin bet vav dalet, also one more thing, cultivation, prepared, adapted, or elaboration. So for that one word, taking all these possible different meanings, keeping the sequence as it's found in the word. I'm not reshuffling the letters, but I am sometimes adding other letters, a yod or a vav, or a different prefix or a different suffix, in order to find out what's in the word. And to make a long story short, after hundreds of hours of trying to find out how to read this language, that's what I've found, using the dictionary, using the natural sequence of the letters, using the Mishkan pattern, knowing that each letter is keyed to one of the festivals and one of the days of creation, which also keys to the Beatitudes and the Lord's Prayer and stuff that's in all the various different books of the Scriptures, including Revelation and the parables of Yeshua and the manifestation of the revelation of who the Messiah is, and on and on and on. There's thousands, literally thousands of double checks and proofs that I can, as far as I'm concerned, prove that this is valid and true and of substance and regardable. Now, given that, in 2010, I took all these words of the Ten Commandments and I went through and tried to render them. How could you possibly read these? And I already went through this just to show you the way it reads on the surface. I'm Yahweh your Elohim, who exported you from the land of Egypt, from the house of slavery. Do not cause there or allow there to be unto yourself Elohim Achrim, which would be gods of others, yoked to or in conjunction with Al Panei, my face. Lo ta ashe, this is the word ashe, which is to work or to do or to cause or to make. Lecha, for yourselves. Pasal, which would be sculptured images where you shave off pieces or take a hammer and knock off chunks which are worthless rubble. And the meaning behind this word is that if you do that, you become like what the image that you made. If we look at Yahweh only as our Elohim, we become like Him. If we regard His words, become like His words, conform to His image, which is His image as words. He said, you heard a voice, you did not see any image, male or female, animal, plant, animal, you saw nothing, but you heard a voice. If we conform ourselves to the words of His voice, we become like Him. That's what He said, that's the system that He arranged. But He said, if you make for yourselves a Pesach Lamed, that's anything like what you think I am, you will be conformed to that, and it's worthless rubble. You will degrade yourselves, you will degenerate yourselves, you will become nothing if you do this. That's the other thing He said. It's not just a command, don't do it, but He tells you why if you look what's behind these words. Worth it and all, or everything that is in the Mem Nun. So you see a Mem Vav Nun. Well, Mem Nun is the place that's birthed from. So He's talking about everything that is in the heavens, Mama'al would be from above, and that is in the earth beneath, Matachat, and that is in the waters under the earth. Now that's the way it reads. But, so, what I'm going to do, and this is going to take a little bit of time here. In 2010, like I said, I went through and I rendered the whole thing. And then just a couple months ago, I did it again, and I wanted to give it a little bit of space of time to see if maybe I would see it differently, because after going through translating these words through hundreds and hundreds of verses, again and again, and looking at it, I've been trying to it's like I knew there was another way to read these things, and I didn't know what it was, but I kept going over and over, and I think I finally saw something, or realized a way to not just take the individual letter, not just the 2-letter and 3-letter, and not just pull this one thing out, but there's a verse in Ezekiel 45, I believe it is, where he says, this is the teaching regarding the temple. Saviv, Saviv, Kadosh, Kodashim. This is the teaching regarding the temple. It's like, now anytime you repeat something, it's like bookend, bracketed. This is the teaching regarding the temple. Like pointing this. This is the teaching regarding the temple. It's like, well, what's here? Saviv, Saviv, Kadosh, Kodashim. What's that mean? Around and around. Kadosh, Kodashim. Well, the word Kadosh is translated holy, set apart. It's very similar to the word Bet Dalet. Distinctly, pure, cleanly his, out of his mouth, out of his mind, out of his invention. Kuf Dalet Shin, the word Kadosh, which is also to be betrothed and to be set apart and be sanctified. It's like this is specially other than anything else in the universe, is that which is Kadosh, which is what's basically the Alphabetic. Kadosh Kodashim is known as the Holy of Holies, or the place where the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of the Testimony was put, represented by the letter Zadi, which is the righteous one, which is the archetype of righteousness, which is Yeshua HaMashiach, resurrecting from the dead, saying, see, I told you I was him. That's the letter Zadi. The word Tzaddik means the righteous one. Any man who chooses to regard the words of this covenant that was in the Ark of the Testimony is also considered a Tzaddik if he does what he says. Okay, so the point of that is to say, though I'm keeping the letter sequence in order, what if I can read this as Yahweh Elohim took you out of the land of Egypt and out of slavery? But what if I could read this backwards? Now, some people might say, you can't do that. And it's like, I'm just trying to experiment. How do you find what's in here? So what I found that it doesn't change the meaning. And what I found is that you can read this around and around and kind of jump backwards a little bit and kind of, I'm not reshuffling the letters because, and again, I like to do is, this is what I found seems to work. I'm not reshuffling the letters, but I'm kind of almost reading the words as if, because in English you say White House. In Spanish you go Casa Blanca, which is house white. In another language, they put this word in front of that word, and the subject and the predicate, and you learn in English grammar school how to break down a sentence and what do they call it? Where you,
Diagram?
Diagram a sentence with a subject and predicate, and verb and noun. But in Hebrew, it doesn't necessarily work that way. So if you say, it has to be kept in this order, it's like, this is a Hebrew syntax, and I don't speak Hebrew, I never learned Hebrew, and I'm now having to shuffle things around, and what I found is that it works. It just works. And you can discuss it and argue it or try it for yourself. I'm just letting you know, making it evident to anybody who wants to learn this language. It works if you kind of shuffle the words around a little bit. It doesn't change the meaning. So what I did then is go back over this in 2012, just a few months ago. And so what I'm going to do, I read this in just a series once, and somebody said, I lost track of which commandment you were on, which of the 10. So what I've done here on these pages, I took each verse. This verse, and I've written down both the 2010 translation and the 2012 translation. So what I'll do is I will read each one of these to you so you can get a flavor of each verse. And this is going to take probably the rest of this hour, but just, and again, somebody may disagree, and some of you are saying, you can't do that, that's unfair, and it's like, I don't think it's unfair. It's like Yahweh gave 22 blocks of alphabet letters and said, here's my stuff, play with it. Well, you have anything else? No, just those 22. Well, I'm going to take one of them and throw them in the kid. Well, you've lost that one, but that's part of the package is the 22. Don't throw them at each other. See what you can build with them. What can you build with the 22 letters? If you stay true to the original sequence, which we went to earlier, and saying, I'll go through it again before we do this. Aleph. In fact, what this is, another thing that's on the Dropbox. Considering all the possibilities, this is what he determined. There's no particular reading through this side or that side. It's just this is another way to read the letters. Aleph, I will, the silent letter. Bet, materialize the plan into physicality. Gimel, nexus, link, tether, boomerang, goes and comes back. I'm gonna Aleph, which is all complete, the one, I'm gonna make an other, I'm gonna cut the other one loose, and then I'm gonna make a link to go back and get the other and bring it back. He said, Israel, hey, you're my betrothed, you're my wife, you're my other. Do you want to be with me or you want to leave? See ya! And Israel took off, and he says, well, now I got to go back again. So in the song, Gimel is the sent one to retrieve us home again. Yeshua, the prophets, the writings. He gave us to bring us back home because he knew as soon as he opened the door and we took off running, we weren't going to come back no matter how much painful it was, except then you get the prodigal son story. The prodigal son takes the inheritance, the guy, goodbye, I'm out of here, goes to spend his money, something happens, there's trouble, he's sitting there and he's feeding pigs and he's hungry. He's like, gosh, you know, you take perfectly good food and you feed it to the pigs. And, man, I wish I could eat some of the food of these pigs. The word in Hebrew for pig is one who returns. So he's saying, I wish I could eat the food of one who returns. Huh? Why don't I go home back to my father's house and eat the food of one who returns? What's the food of one who returns to the father's house? It's this stuff, because this is the father's house given to us in a comprehensible format that the infinite one says, you guys can't perceive the infinite because you're not infinite, you're finite. I make you finite, I give myself in a finite format and say, here, this is my stuff. And it incorporates the 7 days of creation, including the Shabbat and the 7 festivals, and every word he spoke. So this is going back to the Father's table to regard these words. That's all Gimel. Dalet, I will deplete myself of strength, impoverished, reduce myself down to the level of you, then I will reveal the way to man of how to reconnect with me, turning back to the one great thing where you can enter the kingdom. You will be sealed as mine. I'll give you the full basket of all my stuff. I will empower you by giving you my words and the teaching and learning to bring forth the unseen and invigorate with life and equip you that you could be the branches of me who is the vine, and like the picture of the menorah, and give you a responsibility like stars in the sky in the jurisdictions of the seasons and the various constellations. I will put you here and you here and you here, like men on a construction crew. This one's doing concrete and this one's doing plumbing and this one's doing roofing. He will give everybody like parts of the body that the New Testament talks about. I will watch over you, but I will see to it also that what you do is coming back to you. The scales of judgment and mercy has whatever goes around comes around. Pay, I will explain the whole thing to you so you're not lost. Zadi, and here's the hope set before you. You will resurrect, and I will see to it that everything that I promised you will happen, like this blossoming. And so when I'm saying, look, I read in here that he said that he will restore Israel, is because he said he will restore Israel. And if somebody says, nah, the end of the world is upon us, and he's just going to come back and rapture us, it's like, that's not what he said. I can show you verses where that's not what he said, which is why the Jews who read those verses don't believe in the rapture. Because that's not what he said. What he said was, if Israel returns to the words of this covenant, he will resurrect Israel and give them back the preeminence, and that might mean, like the regal, the crumbling of the existing order of all the nations. So somebody's going to get tribulated, but it's not Israel. It's all the other nations who are the head of gold, arms of silver, midsection of bronze, legs of iron. It's those people that have set up this idol of imagery that is contrary to the words of the Alphabet Nun. And the Alphabet Nun, when it impacts the regal of that statue, the statue falls. Just like when they took the Ark of the Testimony in and put it in with Dagon, the Philistine god, and that Philistine god fell over and his head and hands fell off. That's what's going to happen to the world system when the people of Israel go back to make the Shem Kadosh according to the Alphabet Nun, which is what we're doing here and now. That's Zadi. Kuf, after this, Resh, the preeminent one, whether that's Yeshua coming back or Israel coming back, it's all the same, it doesn't matter. It's the Messiah figure. Sheen, teeth and fire to consume the enemies and refine those who are purified according to his word. Tav, accomplished in the covenant, as he said. That's the key. And it's keyed to the 7 festivals. Pesach, Hag Matzot, Shavuot, Yom Teruah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shemini Atzeret. The 7 days of the festivals. So the Zion lines up with the 7th day Shabbat, the Zadi lines up with the 7th day Shabbat, correlating the other pattern, and Shemini Atzeret. They're both weapons, the Zion and the Zadi. That's a whole other study. My point is, that's what this is key to. So, now I'm going to read through. So just so you know where this is coming from. So, when he says, I'm Yahweh your Elohim, who's taken you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, this is another way to translate those words. I myself have prepared these words to be the accurate standard, the plumb line of truth. I will hobble my own aloof sovereignty, accountable to no other one, to be reduced to the conformity of the very matters that I have exported to you. In order to authenticate the pace, I myself will go out running this course with you. Neighbors, though you will treat me as filth, piercing the righteous one in the place of Caesar, from within myself alone is objective adaptation, obedience to the facts of how to walk straight, my own line. The other way to read it. I will diminish the grandeur, the otherness of myself from beyond reach. Yahweh. Lowering down, drop, plummet, the how-to. I will lead whoever that would be blessed. The product, the yield that I am with you, your benefit, what is yours is at my expense. Like a palm leaf. I produce the palm leaf, you get the shade. Cut off, make stop the fabrications, the lies embedded into your subconscious, your subliminal programming that have been put into you. Your internal place of being between a rock and a hard place. At the place where I am, my domicile, obedience is for the sake of resemblance. To think as I think, seeing differently from all others like me. I will exalt the man who nurtures righteousness as I do. Trained and adapted according to my own Tav, sign of the covenant, insignia. That's that first verse. Second verse. Do not make for yourselves Elohim Achrim, gods of others, yoked to my face. It is not done for you, but to lead you on the course, as you will lead your brothers after you, with authority, in reference to the expression of my face concerning the forbidden matters, lest perhaps I should turn away from them and have to exterminate them for vacating my regard. The other way to read it. Not he will allow to happen, or cause to become unto you, Elohim, others, together with my face. Now this reads kind of disjointed because that's the way the Hebrew words are. And I'm trying to remain true without adding too many filler words. So again, that's the Hebraic pattern, the syntax. Other powers disappear while my gaze is upon you. Other powers are void. This engages a state of war as far as I'm concerned. Another way to read that same verse. Do not put your own hand to cause to exist or to allow to exist gods of others, other gods. A deified brother, fellow human to whom you attribute hoary-headed respect of the white-haired exalted man, who shows up on the scene later than, this is what the meaning of Elohim Achrim is, who shows up on the scene later on, postponed a while from arriving here under rather strange circumstances, who has the reputation of responsible party, or the surety, or guarantor of your future. Sounds like Jesus Christ. Which is why you don't worship Jesus Christ, you worship Yahweh only. But Jesus Christ was convoluted out of Yeshua, and Yeshua was the sent one who said, hey, worship Yahweh. Regard his words. Obey his commandments. Do what he said. And people say, well, he didn't deny worship. He never said to worship him. He said worship Yahweh. Now, he might be Yahweh in the flesh in disguise, but we don't worship the disguise because he came in the cloak of a man. But man was made in the cloaked image of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. According to these 10 words, according to these 22 letters. So to worship Yeshua, worship Jesus, I think contradicts this scripture where he says, do not allow or cause there to be by your own hand Elohim Achrim. And this word ach is brother. Achar, char is the word for hoary-headed, where we get the word chor or hoary-haired, white-haired. Oh, there's a dignified noble, like the British judges in the guys like Clinton with the white hair. Reem is the grand stature. Do not let there be powerful ones who are your brothers with white hair that you give a great statue to, yoked to my face. The word ayin lamed is not just above, or it's at, it's concerning, it's on account of, in regards of, in reference to my face. And yod with his mouth, the living thing that jumps out of, the hand which is my, which causes something to work, which is the definition of a word. The word for face sounds like the description of a word. Do not think that one of your brothers who you give noble regard to, and even Yeshua coming back to the book of Revelation, looks like he has white hair, do not worship him as an Elohim in connection to my words. As the word made flesh, of course we should worship him. Do not worship him and make a god of him like the others have done. Do not do it. Oh, but we should do it in reference to him. Do not do it. You worship Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. That is the one that gave us words, not images. The Greek Orthodox, the Russian Orthodox, the Orthodox people have images thinking they're looking at him. He said, do not do it. Well, this is the covenant given to Israel. So you Orthodox people can do anything you want. He said to Israel, do yoke to my face. If you want to be Israel, don't be lied to by your fearless leaders. Fear, and him you shall serve with all your heart. That's what this is about.
Amen.
Okay.
It's right back to the Shema.
Like the Shema. Okay. Who stands up on the scene, who shows up on the scene later on, postponed a while from arriving here. That's the word akar, which, after a while, the word postponed, other, strange, next. So I'm taking all these words and putting them together and coming up with this narrative. Who in any way is connected to or in reference to my family, if you attribute him a superior regard than that I myself have expressed. Any sort of alternative, powerful Superman figure who would entice or provoke or beguile you to disengage from regarding my face, which is actually not a face, but is my words, who on account of his great respect, you evacuate your bowels from warmly and affectionately attending to the growth and development of my seed, my word, which I implanted within you. Associate no other authority figure with my face, not in front of, instead of, in reference to, together with, or in any proximity of my presence, which is the expression I opened myself to impart to you. If any person who thinks of themselves to be Israel evacuates, takes the seed of his word, and instead regards an Elohim Achrim, it's like getting an abortion of Yahweh's personal Shem that he put in your heart. That's why I don't worship Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Verse 3. Do not make for yourselves idols and so forth. I'm just going to go on with this. This word tashag also can mean military industry. So here's another way to read this. No militars. Now, militar is a Spanish word meaning military authorities and powers and forces. No militars against you. Canceled, annulled. And all of the portion that was assigned, only the blessing, pleasantly perfuming from above, blanketing. And whoever explains makes clear the track, the defined course, the one who directs by what means to the house of the west. House of the west, that would be Ephraim. Whoever explains to Ephraim explains the underlying reason for this dispersion, this galoot path of tangles and Celtic knots. That's what we're doing here. Jews may not have any regard of what we're doing. Talking to Ephraim, the 10 lost tribes, scattered across the face of the earth. The word galoot is where we get the word Celt. Gimel, Lamed, Vav, Tav. Vav, Tav is the plural. The Gaul, like Gauls, is France, Europe. The word in Hebrew for Gaul is the woes who were like a revolving door. They were kicked out of the land for being idiots and blown off the covenant and became lost and forgot their identity and became scattered across the face of the earth. And like in, I think it was Bugs Bunny, and the guy said, "Oh, you big galoot." That's Hebrew, that's Jewish for saying, "You stupid fool. What have you done? You threw away the covenant, lost your treasure, and lost your identity, and now you've got to wander the world, lost in tangles and knots like the Celtic knot." The Celtic pattern is a pictorial, graphic representation of the curse that Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh put on his people Israel. To be lost in confusion, no beginning, no end. You lost your way, and you'll never find it back until he, Ayin Tav Kuf Zadi, Daniel 12:4, opens it up and says, now you're free. Which is right now, I believe, out of 2012, which is why we're talking about this. Another way to read that verse. Don't make any graven image of anything that is in the heavens above, the earth beneath, or in the waters up under the earth. That's what it says. No military industry will be able to compel you otherwise. Nothing made by your own self could be better, so as to make this seem trivial and worthless in comparison. Even the exalted ones were disqualified and declared unfit, those classified as the sort positioned in the heavens, moving away from the yoke unfaithfully. Even those from on high must walk straight according to the clear explanations of righteousness as laid out and stipulated on earth, the extent to which one must stand being dismayed by terror and fear, is determined by the extent to which one determines not to run this course of excellent virtues, of righteousness, by which the concept of innocence is determined, as it has been appointed so as a means of evaluation. This is Yahweh telling, these words. Yahweh universe work embedded behind these words of the Ten Commandments, giving his people insight as to how to receive the blessing and the curse. But on the surface, all they have to do is not make any god or graven image. Another way to read this verse. No weapon formed against you can annul all the rations I have ordained to bless you with, you who walk straight. It's not what you are forced to do that disqualifies. Every matter of compulsion is considered and weighed, taken into account. I will bless and strengthen with pleasant fragrance from above whoever will ascend this staircase. This particular area clearly defined. My territory is righteousness, and it is exactly what that means. Its avoidance is the underlying reason for trouble, confusion. Do not make for yourselves worthless statues. You will be disqualified. Every image will be assigned the power to intoxicate as it is esteemed, to treacherously betray, contrary to ascending. Whoever does so will be cast into a pit, confined underneath, shattered and dismayed. As long as these high places are tolerated, so too determination. Bound, not running, tangled knots, tense exhaustion. The fourth commandment, which I didn't write up here, which is do not regard or bow down to them, and do not assert, I am powerfully jealous, visitor and fourth generation of those. That's what English. This is what it says. There is not made known any other basis of renaissance, of renewal, of revival for them, other than adapting to the likeness of just exactly that which my hand expressed to them. Lies and deception has confused and misdirected, leading to bloodshed and disappointment. Been turned around, and with equal value, life ceases. Condition that I, Yahweh, will straighten out that which is distorted, to find worthy of my attention, nested in with fanatical passion, attending to what I myself am zealous over, remembering that of a mother praying for children, one who will place as appointed, ask to be in words, adorning patient suitably, becoming glowing, uncover my desire. Please transform my violent enmity by consent. As I was deeply impressed and made past. Adam was deeply impressed by Eva. The word Eva means to be deeply impressed by. As a young man in love, so is the future to become suited to my language and studies, located by slander, disguised by different teachings. No limit placed upon what can be expressed. Unique type like me, branded Yahweh. Desire, engines are themselves like powerfully detail. One valuable perk of man is the perversion of distorted, twisted. I will wither. It comes to any issue, what they deserve. And then he talks about this third-person interloper. Who themselves, well, my children are done of their time out, they're appointed, and it's curse of confusion and aimless wandering. The world order people who are trying to dominate the sons of Abraham, Israel, includes the sons of God and the sons of. Well, my children are drowsy, trying to run of their time out. They're disappointed. Their appointed banishment is bewildering curse and confusion and aimless wandering. Them to lie down and naturally, bestially, idolatrous in order to provoke them, transform enmity. Whoever, for the sake of the desired thing I specified, sounds like Shabbat rest, causes a great uncover by changing my words, changing my dwelling, disguising my beauty, chewing up my decoration, entering the adornment of my tongue, as they transform suit. My tongue is enmity. Search out, seek the fourth. My desire is evident. That's it. Tender loving kindness unto thousands of them who keep mine with me. Here's to understanding what gets me going, what turns me on, giving me lovely affection, kindness, pious, Michael, regarding my words. Domestic to me is a full-minded and sound. This is not exaggerated nonsense. Take care to remove every drag of ice, stalks of torture, wearied by my becoming rebellious, bitter competition for the sake of listening. my previously which were in order to team festivals. He said is all about the image, not because it's teaming up in relation with him, being of arranging for occasions of tender loving kindness to occur unto those who are my team of taught ones. No exaggeration, no fooling. I will give myself to the one who loves me. And contrast the attitude of the one who is a rebel to my ways to the one who honors my ways. My stuff, the specific issue, a big deal. My strong moral revelation. Kindled to burn is of my attached structure be lit by verse. Do cause there to be an annihilation of the team, because he will not him guiltless who take in vain. Wait, no emptiness in estimating the value of Yahweh being your Elohim. There's nothing to equate by comparative value. Any alternative is worthless falsehood. There's no by which to assess worth, because no one can stretch out a line far enough to measure the distance or evaluate the radiance of what Yahweh made to be is Aleph Tav. Whoever will authenticate the reality of what's there is himself there lifted up. He confirms the reality of God to be possessed at the authorization of his reputation as his personal wedding vow, which is his personal desire to carry. He is elated to do so. Remember Yom HaShabbat to make it Kadosh. The instrument of your purification, the crucible which recurs, which turns things around, is remember according to Aleph Tav, the appointed action which causes the physical manifestation, which is birthing. This is our quid pro quo of the covenant, hence the enticement to blow it off. It's what is required for a man to be reckoned kadosh, which is scrutinized, washed, doused. The way to read that verse. Remembering the purity of his majesty, to attain the privilege of having the truth fixed into one's mind, is the day the dwelling place of El Shaddai is cleansed, made kadosh. It's the seat assigned for his daughter to rest in, locking out all workers, the Shabbat. This is what Hanukkah is about, making the dwelling place of El Shaddai kadosh. Tonight's the first night of Hanukkah. But that's embedded in this verse here. Next verse. 6 days you shall work and accomplish all the tasks that you're sent to do. Way to read this. A foundation of 6 was laid. Western waters. Western water, Yodmem, Yodmem. Water is to the sea, to the west. So the way we could read is western waters. Or anyway. Navigating away from ancient paths. Salty, mariner, word malak, as in the Salt Covenant. Abominations of the only choice, unique door. Abominations of the one option. 6,000 years of abomination by aggression. I have made the basis, the constitution. I have laid the foundation. All else is appendage, supplemental amendments. Every messenger I send to your team are only wearing this uniform. By this authority do they prove their authorization. Another way to read this. Whoever will sit, he will be provided hidden waters, which are adapted from that place accordingly, elaborated as obedient worship, led into the exclusive place of stability, where anything you could ever do, any idea you may ever consider, is made full, accomplished. Angels sent to confirm you. They amass themselves to complete your work. All your weird tiredness is an artificial mission. Yom 7th is and all the work that you do, and your son and your daughter and your manservant and your maidservant, and the beast and the stranger within your gates. So the 7th vow. By regarding unto Yahweh your Elohim, he will make that which is hidden, waiting, developing, brought to term, to birth, returning, giving back that which is taken away into captivity, hidden, lost, kept away, when my sworn oath is fully satisfied. Makes me think of the 2,730-year curse over in 2010. The one who seeks to be captured by me quests for my satisfaction cease from work the 7th day. Regard exist, and what Yahweh destroys or specifies as by oath these. These are how you move toward Yahweh. No compulsory labor. No doing by forced action, industrial production, military manufacturing. In other words, he's not forcing anybody to do this. All messengers work to accomplish a task for you at your command, where you have authority to say no, or like this. All who are in you and your company, your empire, and one who inhabits your intention, distrust you to verify what is true. All those you as beasts. So in order that blessings burst through your gates in equitable measure, it's a list of all who's supposed to regard the Shabbat. Another way to read that same verse. When it finally dawns on someone to return and he seeks to satisfy his vow, his sworn oath of liege, of fidelity, he will notice that he happens to be sitting down on Shabbat. When the 7th era comes around, he who seeks, searching out to uncover, finds me in the contentment of Shabbat, as a designed Yahweh's